These busted DVDs are starting to pile up. I guess it's time to throw away a few. Ow! Oh man, that one cut me. And it drew blood. No! Dracula's back! Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster. I've talked a lot about Dracula throughout the years. Hell, I even did a lecture about him once. And unlike Michael Bay, when I do a lecture, I actually finish it. Point is, because I've talked about the character so much, I'm gonna keep this opening monologue short. The fact of the matter is that there hasn't been a good adaptation of Dracula since Hammer released their version in 1958. Yes, there have been adaptations like Coppola's and Argento's versions, which had good elements about them, but we haven't had anything that was good all the way through. Many attribute this to the fact that none of these subsequent adaptations were produced by Universal, the studio responsible for turning The Dark Prince into a household name. So for decades we have waited for Universal to take another stab at Dracula, and show all the other studios how it's done. Finally, in 2014, we got the film that we were waiting for, Dracula Untold, a movie that promised to reveal Dracula's origins by mixing them with the history of the real-life historical figure that he was based on, Vlad the Impaler. This automatically made a lot of fans wince in displeasure. After all, do we really need to know Dracula's origins? Every time they've tried to do this in the past, their efforts were met with disastrous results. Secondly, the trailers portrayed Vlad/Dracula as a hero, very much in the same style as Disney's Maleficent. This is not a good sign for a film dealing with one of the most famous villains in history. And last but not least, this alleged horror movie, which dealt with a combination of one of the most brutal rulers in history and one of the most vile villains in fiction, is rated PG-13. Oh yeah, this is gonna be painful. So our movie begins with a big fat 300 ripoff, which goes on to exposit that in the 1400s the Turks almost conquered all of Europe, and they got as far as they got by sequestering 1,000 Transylvanian boys, and having them be cannon fodder for their armies. One of the few boys who survived the ordeal was the Transylvanian prince himself, known to his enemies as the son of the dragon, Dracula, but known to his subjects as Vlad the Impaler. So what better way to compliment a bloody and violent opening than by cutting to a beautiful peaceful meadow? Yeah, that was a great choice. We find Vlad, played by Luke Evans, and his men following the trail of some Turkish scouts, which they follow to Broken Tooth Mountain.
But we can't go there.
Upon their arrival in the Forbidden Mountain, they don't find any Turkish scouts. Instead, they walk right into a vampire's nest. Its current resident quickly snatches and kills Vlad's men, but lets him go when the Impaler pulls out a sword on him. "You walk into my home and then pull a sword on me. It's lucky for you that I don't drink. Assholes." Shaken by the event, Vlad seeks out the counsel of his head priest, who goes on to reveal that the vampire who ate Vlad's men was a former priest, who summoned a demon to make a bargain for its powers, which the demon gave in return for the man's soul. However, the demon tricked him, and now this master vampire can't leave his lair until he finds a willing subject to pass his powers to. A master vampire that is magically trapped in his lair? Why does this sound familiar? Nonetheless, this exposition scene presents us with the first plot hole in the movie. The priest knew there was a vampire in that mountain. Hell, he had a freaking book full of details about the vampire. Then why in Godzilla's name did he not tell anyone? You know all the deaths he could have prevented? Not to mention Vlad, your leader, your prince, could have been killed, you inconsiderate jerkwad! So Vlad and his people celebrate 10 years of peace, just in time for the plot to rear its ugly head, as the Turkish Sultan, played by Dominic Cooper, sends his men to demand 1,000 more Transylvanian boys to fill the ranks of his army. He goes on to demand that one of these boys be Vlad's only son, as part of a demonstration of loyalty to the Turks. Vlad does his best to go with the flow and give up his son to maintain the peace. But then, one of the Turkish generals gets a little too cocky.
I have to say, we're a little disappointed. Frankly, I expected more resistance.
So, since technically Vlad just declared war on one of the most powerful military forces of the era, he must have a strategy, right? I don't know, relocate his people, or maybe gathering forces from neighboring kingdoms? No! His only solution is to go back to Broken Tooth Mountain and get the Master Vampire to sire him, so he will have the power and the strength to kill his enemies single-handed. Are you serious? What the hell would make you think that making a deal with the blood-sucking demon was the best course of action?
Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
What? Was that you answering my question, or was that just a cool line for the trailer? However, the evil blood-sucking vampire was apparently feeling very sporting that day, because he decides to warn Vlad that if he drinks human blood within the next 3 days, the transformation will be permanent. But if he avoids giving into the thirst for those 3 days, on the 4th day he will go back to being human. The irony is that the blood-sucking unholy monster was actually more helpful than the priest. So Vlad drinks the vamp blood and then wakes up in a river. How did he get from the cave to the... Oh, who cares? As the master promised, Vlad now has all the powers of the undead, and then some. So he goes to try them out on the Turks. But first, he needs a quick wardrobe change.
Nice coat.
Alright, it's time to pound these Turks into Turkish delight! Whoa! This scene is amazing! Wait, what is this? Why are we sticking to this close-up of a sword? You cut away?
This is so disappointing.
Vlad deals with his blood cravings and all-around vampirism by having his wife cover for him during the day and isolating himself from his people. And...
You're mistaken. I follow them.
Of course not. Why do you think I stayed? I know there is only so far on this earth we can run. And it is not far enough.
Okay, I have a question, and I think it's a very fair question. Who the hell are you? So after Mr. MacGuffin leaves the scene just as quickly as he entered it, Vlad decides to check on his people, who have taken refuge in a nearby monastery, when suddenly the head priest notices something odd about Vlad's behavior. Hey preacher, what up? Just over here being myself. totally not being a vampire, walking in the shade in the middle of the day because I don't want to get a tan. I wonder if the priest fell for his elaborate ruse. No. The answer to that question is no. So the situation between Vlad and the priest escalates to the point that his people turn on him and set him on fire. They just tried to kill the guy who single-handedly saved them from an invading army. But that's not the best part, as the rest of the scene plays out like this. Yeah, we did it! We killed the vampire! No, I'm okay, I'm fine. By the way, you guys are like total douchebags. But I'm gonna lead you anyway. See you at dinner. Eventually, the Sultan discovers the battlefield and sees what Vlad did to his men. While seeing your entire army decimated is pretty intimidating, the Turks were among the greatest military forces of the era, so I can't help but wonder what strategy they will use to defeat Vlad.
Only if we allow it. Men cannot fear what they cannot see.
Blindfolds, huh? You know what? I'm not gonna judge. It's not like I know what it's like to be a military leader in the 1400s. So I'm gonna give this blindfold thing a chance and see how it plays out.
What is that? Back up.
The blindfolds are not working! Who was the dickhead that came up with this idea? I hope he dies! So while Vlad goes Batman Year 1 on the Turks, a handful of Turkish soldiers magically get past Vlad, and all the Transylvanian defenses, they slip into the monastery and go after Vlad's wife and son. Ooh, right in the ovaries! Oh man, now that is some ice-cold shit. The Turks snatch Vlad's son and leave the queen precariously dangling from the tower. It's okay, Vlad has the strength and speed of a master vampire. He can catch her like that. Like that. Like that. Like, ooh. So, he can kill hundreds of Turkish soldiers in seconds, but he can't catch up to a falling woman? Oh, this is just... Wait, hold on. Vlad and his wife were only in the air for 30 to 40 seconds, tops. And in that time, the Turks carried his son from the tower, down the stairs, out of the monastery, and put him on horseback just in time to see his mother hit the ground? Bullshit! As Vlad holds his dying wife in his arms, cause apparently back then falling from 100 stories and landing on jagged rocks didn't turn you into a greasy smear. His wife suggests that he drink her blood, so he will retain his vampire powers and be able to save their son. Oh, good gravy. Okay, two things. Thing number one, did it ever occur to him that he can save his wife by just turning her into a vampire? That way, they can be together for all eternity. And thing number two, it's not like she's the only person whose blood he can drink. There are plenty of dying Turks all around. But, oh, fuck it. Now that Vlad is permanently a vampire and has embraced the name of Dracula, he decides to sire a bunch of his fallen subjects. So his wife is just gonna stay dead. These random people he just found laying about on a battlefield, totally worthy of eternal life. You know, it also occurs to me that Vlad didn't need the assistance of other vampires when taking on the Turks. But hey, if the Turks can move at the speed of light, he's gonna need all the help he can get. So the Drac Pack is on the attack, and the Dark Prince heads straight to the Sultan's tent to save his son.
I understand you have a weakness for silver.
Oh So that's a good detail. You see, in some of the mythologies, vampires are actually vulnerable to silver. But here's my question. How the hell did he know that? The only one who knew anything about vampires was the priest. And on top of that, why the hell would the Sultan have millions of pounds of silver in his tent in the middle of a war? But that's not even the stupidest aspect of this scene. I want you to think long and hard about this. What is wrong with this scene? Why doesn't this scene work? Can you see it? No? Okay, I'll give you a hint. They're in a tent! It's not like the Sultan has Dracula trapped in a stone dungeon filled with silver, the one metal that takes away Dracula's power. They are in a tent! Dracula can just push him outside where his power level would go back to normal and take him out really fast. But no. Instead, we are stuck with this pointless sword fight that adds nothing to the plot. And when I complain about a movie having one sword fight too many, you know we have a big fucking problem. So, of course, due to the silver greatly weakening Dracula, the Sultan actually has a fighting chance.
If I put a stake through your heart, it will kill you. Like any other man.
How would he know to use a wooden stake? That's so... I'm sorry. It's pretty ridiculous at this point in the movie to point out the plot holes. But it is still really hard to ignore the stupidity of somebody trying to stab someone with a piece of wood through a breastplate of armor. The armor separated to give the Sultan easier access to Dracula's chest. You know, I just can't be shocked about this stuff anymore. At this point, I'm just waiting for the next idiotic plot convenience to occur. Dracula's powers worked in spite of the fact that he is in a room full of silver. Oh, let's just end this! So the day is saved. Dracula's son will live to rule in his stead. The Dark Prince now has an army of Nosferatu and... wait, the vampires are turning on Dracula? But this is a Universal movie. In the Universal movies, Dracula can control the vampires that he sires. Oh, who cares anymore? So the Priest of Convenience comes out of nowhere with a cross in hand and rescues young Alucard. Dracula suddenly develops the ability to control the weather. Sure, why not? And parts the clouds, letting the sunshine in, destroying himself and his vampire brethren. Alright, it's over now, right? The day is saved. Dracula's son is the King of Transylvania. And of course, Mr. MacGuffin makes a second brief appearance in the movie to revive what's left of Dracula.
You think I don't watch your movies? You always come back.
The end.
Page off.
Damn it, a mid-credits scene. So we cut to modern times, where a posh-looking Dracula spots a pretty lady that bears a striking resemblance to his late wife.
Vlad.
I'm Mina.
What? Mina? Like Wilhelmina Harker, the woman that Dracula tries to turn into his bride in the book? But the book takes place in the 19th century. So, are they going to remake the original story but set it in modern times? Hey, wait a minute! It's the Master Vampire! The one that turned Vlad into a vampire!
Let the games begin.
Let the games begin? What games? What the hell was that? Was this supposed to be a sequel bag? Was the Master Vampire now Van Helsing? Oh. This movie's up! No! Anything but that! God. This movie's dreadfully draconian dreck of dreariness, but like lots of the movies that I've reviewed, this one had plenty of potential. Great casting, great cinematography, decent effects, and some pretty damn good performances. But we have two major flaws here. For starters, for a movie about one of the bloodiest villains in history and in fiction, this film has no bite. The PG-13 rating really limited the violence, so what we are left with is a really tame, toothless, gutless wannabe horror movie that is about as shocking as an episode of Pearly. Yeah, I watch Pearly. You wanna make something of it, motherfucker? Say what you like about Coppola and Argento's Dracula films, but at least those were true horror films, and their Draculas were badass. And of course, this film's second fatal flaw is the writing. There are some great ideas here, but the shooting script needed some serious revisions, cause this turkey had plot holes big enough to drive a semi through. And yes, I know that it's only a matter of time before the Dark Prince resurfaces, but when he does, I'll be ready, cause that was one busted, thousands more to go. I'm Erod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.